people were glorifying the digital work,
Yeah.
but now she's seeing a lot more people go back into the physical work. Just because like the digital work, it could be like
You know, that's an important thing. Like we're talking about now. Like, how do you know, maintain the two sides of your life? But like, it's something you love to do, juxtaposed to something you have to do.
You should just listen, not only to understand, but to find solutions for everyone to win. And that, to me, when you were talking, I was like, the most dangerous thing to listen to.
Anything can happen. We have these like picture perfect lives we think can unfold, but in reality, there are crosses, there are separates, and you need the partner who's going to be there to remind you, like,
what? Okay.
All right. Welcome back to the Ethic Skill podcast. We have a special friend, Justin Wade. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about relationship. We're going to talk about what's going on with what happened to Super Bowl. We're going to talk about Doge. We're also going to talk about Elon Musk and what he's doing with the Department of Education. And there's going to be probably a lot of things we're going to delve into. So stay tuned. And this is the Ethic Skill podcast. All right. So, guys, how are you feeling today? You guys are good?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, question, Justin. You know, we know each other we worked together for almost, 5 years, 6 years. And I know you like traveling a lot. How did that work out working, where the structure of a business is that they want to retain you, in a physical space when you wanted to explore the world? What was those challenges?
I think to piggyback on what you said, it was challenging. Being someone that likes to travel, I like to see new things, meet new people, and then having to be in a workspace where that's not really tolerated, for lack of better wording. I think it's something that you have. It's quite an adjustment, so to speak, because there's a lot of responsibility that you have to maintain when you're working on site. But I think now the new generation will, they'll kind of have to take a liking to the fact that they have a lot more luxuries as far as like having remote jobs and things. That wasn't a thing, for my generation. I'm a millennial, so be that as it may, it was an adjustment, and I do feel like it has its hardships, trying to maintain that work-life balance and things is very difficult. I think the thing that would get me through it was just overall, like the friends I made within the companies that I worked for, and just trying to tell myself like, all right, well, keep your work balance one way, keep your life balance another way. But I think what really set the bar for like a new level of like it being challenging was the pandemic, honestly. Being out of work for like almost 2 years, a year and a half, whatever have you, and then coming back, and then it's like, okay, now I'm back to this. Like it was like a jail sentence, and I'm sure a lot of people can agree. That's why they gave a lot of people the option to work from remote. But if you're working in like, branches of business like retail or, sales, you kind of had to get back on the farm and get back to work. So I think for me, that's what made it more challenging. But I'm sure COVID humbled a lot of people, just like it humbled me to be in the mental space. It's like, okay, like now I want to kind of have the opportunity to focus more on my personal life, juxtaposed to like, my career, because, they both go hand in hand. And like I said, if COVID taught us anything, it's that like you shouldn't take, the things that you could do for granted outside of work. So for me, I just feel like that's something that I'm not willing to bargain with anymore. I just find it really important to just, go to work, yeah, do what you got to do, but also like have some time for yourself, and, not fall into that void of like, oh, my life is just work. It's go home, come back, go home, come back. I think, I think now there's a lot more opportunities to, work remotely and things, but with the elections and things, and like the new narratives that are being pushed, that like people should be back in the workforce, people should be back all hands on deck. I think that's going to be the next challenge that people really have to, face right now.
It's an interesting point of view. What are your thoughts, guys? What do you experience managing, that balance of work and
Like,
life
yeah, that's
and relationship? Because that's what we're going into.
that's true. That's very true. Like, it's hard for, I guess, like in the trying to discover how to manage work and life. I blend them through so many times where I'm like, work has become life and life has become like a little work. I like the blending of it a little bit because then it keeps me in a path of like it all gets progressive, which is fun. But then I get into these big crashes where I'm like, okay, I gotta take a little rest, which is yeah, right. And it's hard to hop into those restings when you know me, I like working all the time. I like working hard, and working hard is great, and and it's really good. It's really good for that. But then on the downside is like I want to go explore, I want to go hike, but then it comes through from the rewards of the work later on. It might not be as like I'll work this much and then I'll do this much exploration and adventure, um, because part of it's like the adventure comes into work with me. Like I like the adventure in work as well. That's one of my experiences in it. And then with the new with the new remote positions and working on site and like having that shift of like people working remotely. I remember we were talking about this in Fang's a little bit in Fang's podcast where she was talking about how the digital work, like people are like people were glamorifying the digital work,
Yeah.
but now she's seeing a lot more people go back into the physical work. Just because like the digital work, it could be like it could be like it is all mental, like it's all mental. You're going through all mentals and like you're not moving the body as much.
Yeah.
And then with the physical work, like you are in the physical realm. You're physically talking to people. You're physically moving the body. And there's like it depends on personality on like who really likes to do physical, who really likes to do digital, and then I guess they're trying to blend those two. And then people coming back into the workforce and having like the workforce say all hands on deck. And I think that's gonna be a strange shift because people now recognize that you don't need all hands on deck for certain operations to happen. Like certain operations can happen behind being in the physical place. Like certain operations can be digital, and then the physical operations you'll need like the physical workers to come in. And then balancing them that's a hard part too because then yeah, it's just balancing it in relationships too. It's like you can't. It's like filling cups, right? It's like how do you fill the cups?
Yeah.
Like how which cups will get filled during which times, and how can this cup fill the next cup, and how can that next cup fill the next cup? Because we only have like a certain amount of energy throughout the day, a certain amount of energy in our lives that we could keep filling cups. Like
Do you feel like it's more difficult for someone such as yourself because you have your hobbies, but your hobbies are also something that you consider like work.
Mhm.
Do you feel like finding the time to do like photography and all of the things because you're very well versed in the realm of just like you do your skateboarding, but you'll find a way to be like, oh my goodness, I can incorporate this into my photography because I've seen you do that and your work is incredible. Do you feel like it's hard to incorporate that aspect of your life, but also having to be like in an actual job, like setting, like at an office, at a desk, still trying to complete the 9 to 5? Do you feel like that's kind of a hard work?
yeah, that is a hard balance. Like before, I used to go out skateboarding like a lot of times, and then it went through to skateboarding as transportation. Yeah, and then, and that's hard to balance with it too. And it's like, and then the hobbies too. It's like trying to rebuild and rediscover the hobbies into it. Like I have all this list that I want to get done, right? But then like realistically, I can only probably do like this much. but then out of like that much of a list, there's probably like this much that could like ripple and down like to this much. So for example, I guess I'm bringing like the skateboarding. Um, for example, with the skateboarding, I went from like I want to skateboard, do a whole bunch of tricks, and use it for travel to go to this adventure, go to this adventure, get, and make some friends with it, etc. So I have like this huge list of skateboarding. Um, and then the list will go down into like, okay, maybe I could just only use it for transportation. But then I could also get my exercise out of it.
Yeah.
So then it becomes like a two birds, one stone type of thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I try to figure out what are those things that can ripple effect into another thing like that, like two birds, one stone. Like try to do that throughout my whole life.
It's crazy that the one source of like your fun and leisure turns into your main source of like transportation when you're just like, oh yeah, this is something. I mean, I'm sure you still love to do it, but you know, once you're like doing it, you're like, man, I'm doing this to get to work. You know, it's not the same as like, you know, doing it to get yourself into a mode of having fun. But I think that's still a very innovative way to incorporate the two. That's very admirable because like there are times I like to drive, but it's funny, I don't like to drive to work. I'm pretty sure a lot of people can attest to that. It's like you like to go for a little quiet drive or play music, you know, go for a little scenic cruise. But then it's like when you're driving to work, you're like, man, you're cursing at everybody, you're stressed, you're banging on the wheel and stuff, especially in New York. It's not like living in New Hampshire. So I think I get that. I could definitely understand that. But do you feel like it's rewarding that you're able to do both, to incorporate that, like, you know, use that source of transportation to get to work, but then when you're at work, you're like, all right, I'm gonna get this done, and then you could look forward to like getting back to like doing the things you love as far as like your photography and all the digital media stuff.
Yeah. Like I guess so. Like we asked is like how like incorporating it into like keeping it as fun, right? Like keeping it as the love of it. Yeah. Like with I guess I'll bring up another one like photography because it's like skateboarding like dimensional, but like with photography then we're open up like a whole new list like that. So like on the photography realm, I used to do a lot of street photography, nature. Like that would be like kind of like my key just to get me outside of the house and just to find new things. So on that photography realm, like I had to not cut it off, but like slow down that part of it, so that I could focus on like commercial side, which is basically like the wedding side of certain stuff. So I'll try to I use the skills from. I guess it comes into levels. Like as the level of it, it was like first just as exploration tool, and then it became a tool to help other people. So then a commercial tool, which then brought like this level. Like I couldn't play on this level as much anymore, because I hopped into the weddings. And then outside of the wedding tool, then like understanding the camera more, understanding a little bit more, we hopped into podcast. And then to bring back like this tool that we left back, because I left it back there. I left it back there just for a little bit. So then the next thing I incorporated it back into like the clothing. So I was like, you know what, I have a medium I could use that can be, I guess, expressed onto fashion, and I could try to grab other people's expressions onto the fashion. So that's like bringing in like the hobby back into a commercial way of making money. I haven't made money yet from it. It'll make money there soon, so it'll get there. So I try to figure out ways to take what I love. I don't neglect it. I just like kind of like put it to the side a little, just for like it's just for a little while because like you can always go back to it. And then it's like taking what you love, putting it to the side just for a little bit, but taking all the talents and what you learned from it, like everything that you learned, incorporating it into like what we're doing now, and it's I guess it's like an expansion. It's like I started to expand on different realms. Like I like with the skateboarding, I took the skateboarding and photography, merged it, then took the photography and weddings, merged it too.
I was thinking.
Yeah, and then we took the weddings and the skills to merge it into a great production. Like the skill sets can only acquire and make like a fullness. Like they will never go away.
Yeah.
It's ingrained.
So
So
I think that's dope because some people usually just lose sight of like what they love to do outside of work, whether it brings them revenue or not. And like for you to incorporate those things, I think that's really huge because you know that helps with your quality of life. And I, for one, I'm just like I've seen people do it. They love to coach, you know, and they do it on the side, and you know whether it's recreational or they're making money from it. But you know, as they have like a career in a certain field, they're like, I gotta focus on my career. I gotta make money. I gotta make a living. So then they start to just lose sight of that. And I think like, you know, that's an important thing. Like we're talking about now. Like how do you, you know, maintain the two sides of your life, but like it's something you love to do, juxtaposed to something you have to do. And you know, that's tough. But like I said, Kevin's an example of like how it's possible, you know.
Definitely.
they,
A lot of people give up on their dreams too, you know, and because they believe that it's also hard to manage priorities depending on the circumstances that you are too. You know, like let's say for I'm not that I'm saying that it's harder for one gender or the other, but I do think female that have like they're single mom, they have it harder
Yeah.
because they have think about it, they have to take care of somebody else that requires 100% of their time.
Yeah.
And some women fight for those dreams. They go for to college regardless. They figure out if they bother the neighbor, if they, you know, adjust with the mom to take care of that child and as they grow. So, you know, giving up on the dream is very easy because all you do is like become, you know, subjective to your current circumstance, but you're not building something that you always loved. And I wanted to ask you this, Alden, because Kevin is somebody very proactive about things, and you guys work together. What are things that? My first question is, what are things that you knew that you couldn't take your eyes from the prize when you were working? And how do you integrate your relationship when you work with Kevin? You know, how does that look like? I'm actually very curious.
Well, actually, I'm happy you brought up the pandemic because I was in school during the pandemic. And so the shift from like being in class to remote, I feel like it opened up a lot of possibilities. And I know the pandemic was difficult for a lot of people, but for me, I feel like it gave me a lot of freedom and just like a lot of perspectives that were opened for me. And I also like my dream is to go around traveling. So when like the pandemic ended and going back to work, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, this is a 9-hour shift. I'm like, I was working in a place where there were no windows, so like there was a lot of surveillance all the time, and I was like, I would text Kevin like, I don't know about this, but it drove me because there's a lot of freedom in photography. Like, don't get me wrong, the hours are long and it's still a job, but it's so beautiful because you can make your own schedule. And I knew what I wanted to do when I was in high school. I've always loved art and photography, and so I always had my eye on the prize with that. And then, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a daily like relationship with what you love to do. You have to pursue it. You have to practice it every day and keep up with it. And it's actually a blessing that we get to work together. It is really cool. Kevin inspires me a lot. I tell him this all the time. Like, he's somebody where I struggle with procrastination because I'm a perfectionist. So for me, I feel like it hinders me from going after what I want to do right away. Whereas he will approach something, like he'll identify it and then he'll like run after it. And I watch him and I'm like, I have like a prison in my mind. I'm like, it has to be this way. I have to have it at the right moment. Whereas he'll make the right moment and he won't let that waiting hinder him. So he's inspired me a lot with coming out of my comfort zone of what I'm defining as perfection, because it's about making that path. So that's something that he's actually pushed me a lot in when we're working together too, because I'll be like, wait, this is not the right time, and he's like, just go after it, you can do it. And I will say, like, I've grown a lot. I feel like in finding my voice with when being with Kevin as a partner too, because when you don't think something is ever the right time, you can waste a lot of time. And he brought that to my attention. 'Cause I have a lot of great ideas, in theory. And then he started saying to me, you have like a list of things that you want to go after, but like, how can we practically go after them? So the question of like practicality versus like an ideal, and actually breaking it down into like fundamental steps on how to achieve something. Kevin came in clutch with that.
The importance of empowerment when you work with somebody, right? You know, empowerment not only about like what you procrastinate, but also that empowerment of saying, "Hey, just go do it. I'm here. If you fall, I'll fall with you. Well, we'll stick together on this. Right? You're not alone."
Yeah.
I think that encouragement is needed in anything you do in any profession because at some point you're going to feel vulnerable too. Um, but I couldn't help to piggyback on it. But you're a perfectionist, right? That means Kevin is perfect. Man, if for once we did something genetically correct, Kevin, you are the savior of the world.
You guys crack me up.
This should work, brother. But I want to ask this question because it's hard sometimes to prioritize the projects that we have with work because again, not everyone has a source of income. They can say, "Yeah, I'm going to work on a project." Like you would hear somebody that's extremely wealthy. "Yeah, I'm working on a project." Yeah, they have like $12 million invested in it. It's not like it's some. Well, I wanted to ask you, what is harder to balance, your dream or a relation with somebody you love, like a partner? I'll let Just go first. Man.
Um, I think I'm gonna go with the second part. I think the relationship with someone you love. Only because like with age, you start to see these things become more apparent. If I was, much younger, I'd be able to say, "Oh, following your dreams, man, that's the hardest thing to do in life." But not, it's obviously like balancing a relationship while trying to follow your dreams is difficult. But I think just overall, um, just having to be able to have that mental capacity and just the energy to give into your relationship with everything that's going on in the world is like extremely difficult. And, that's what leads to divorce because some people can persevere, they can navigate through those sort of situations, and others they're just like, I'm just throwing the towel. That's the easiest way to go about it. You know, and if you see marriage through a religious lens or if you just see it from a lineage perspective as far as like what you were taught, your values growing up, I think no matter how you slice it, it's something that requires a lot of time and energy. It's just like going to the gym, especially if you want to see the results that you looking to earn from it. And I think you got to be all hands on deck. It's challenging. It's really challenging, and as someone who has been in those situations, and more so like even now, I'm just like, man, like to try to maintain your mental for your career path and just providing for yourself, the people you care about, and then like you have to also be fully present in your relationship is extremely challenging. And I think the only thing that can like really be the driving factor of success is just like communicating, with your partner and just being very transparent, like what you're dealing with stress. Like, yeah, therapy is something that can help. It's something that can, um, what's the word I'm looking for? It could be a resource, but I think it also starts like at home. Like if you have a rough day at work, you know, be that partner that wants to sit down and say, "Hey, this is how my day was today." And then for the other partner, it's like, "Well, tell me more about it." You can't just be the person that's just like, "I'm gonna let them vent," but you're not taking the information. You have to be a sponge And it's very profitable for it to be a reciprocal situation because overall, when everybody feels that they could come home and take off that load, it's a safe space, but I've been in relationships where I've been like, man, work is killing me. My partner's like, oh, that's crazy. But yeah, I'll talk to you later. That's very demoralizing. And it's not like people do it intentionally. Sometimes it's done subconsciously. But I think it's a very damaging scenario to be confronted with. And I think for me, like I said, with age comes knowledge. I've learned like it's very important to be present in those moments. It's very important to be a resource and to be able to have those conversations with your partner and say, all right, listen, I want to know all about it, and let's try to work to discuss it, unpack it, because not everything is going to have a solution, but sometimes part of the part of uh, you know, a resolve is just being able to tell somebody everything's gonna be okay. Like that's you have children. I'm sure you've had to have that conversation with them and reassure them like everything's gonna be okay. The worst thing you want them to do is feel like it's not.
It's good that you mentioned that because I'm going to just give a little note on this because I was working with a session. The question that I commented to them was, what is what is the purpose of listening? With what intention do you listen? Do you listen to really capture the information, or do you listen to defend yourself? So if you're doing to defend yourself, you're not really listening because you're ready to answer without even asking yourself, is my mind free to listen right now? And also, there was a follow up question from this person that said, what should I do? It's like, keep asking more questions because what you want to help that person is get to the root of the problem. And now you're valuing the information they're giving you, and also that also brings peace because that person feels heard, but also you understand what hurt that person,
Yep.
and you'll be able to assess the situation better with them. So it's very important that what's the purpose of us listening?
Mhm.
Why do you go there to listen? But if you can't go blocked, because that's how discussion starts. Oh, you suck,
Yep.
and you suck
Yep.
even more,
Yep.
and then they start, the non-stop, arguments
Yeah.
that lead to nowhere. Sometimes being quiet and just like, hey, you should catch yourself. It's like, I want to respond. It's like, why? Ask yourself that. Why do I want to respond? There's no point. How's that going to help me to help them? So, the question is really good, Autumn. And then, Kevin, you can follow up. But what are your thoughts about, balancing that relationship? Which one do you think it's more difficult?
Well, I agree with Justin. Communication is so important. For me, though, for my answer, I think I would go with balancing the dream, just because I like when you're in a relationship, you're discerning every day if like you guys are meant to be together and the purpose of the relationship, right? If you're discerning marriage as being the end point, is to see like, are you guys helping each other bring out the best in each other? And so for me, I feel like because of my relationship with my like photography and my dreams, I've put it on the shelf just because of a lot of personal things that I've gone through. And healing wise, I kind of like ignored my photography and like my art just because it was too painful to kind of like go near it. And I kind of prevented myself from seeking solace in it. And I kind of just like locked it in the door and put it to the side. And I can easily like not pay attention to it, but find like solace in my relationship and grow in that regard while also not tending to the garden of like what I want to do in life just because of the journey that I've been on it. And it was very like painful to go down that route just because I like to be very introspective and kind of unravel a lot of things in the way that I do my art process. And it was like too much for me. So I was like, I'm not even going to talk about this right now. And I honestly haven't picked up my camera personally in a very long time. And that's something that I'm trying to like regain a healthy relationship with again, just because it means I have to look at myself in a deeper way, and I wasn't willing to do that. But I yet, like, when you're in a relationship, part of you is mirrored back at yourself. So like being with Kevin, I find things out about myself every day. So it goes hand in hand for me. I think like if you're in a healthy relationship and you have a healthy relationship with your dreams, all of it should be a fluid conversation. But when there's problems starting to come up and you kind of feel isolated, it's hard to like swallow all of it.
That's a good point. Go ahead, kids.
I think they both take sacrifices. Like I think if you want anything to be good, it has to be you have to sacrifice certain things. Like when you're chasing your dream, you sacrifice a list of things in order to chase them. Like time is one of those big sacrifices that goes into a dream because it takes a lot of time to develop something. Even in a relationship, like the time you put into a relationship is big because then that's how you guys get to know each other, discover each other, and discover basically the big goal of a relationship, whether that's like with families, buying something, going like vacations, like even go like it could be simple things, even like trying to figure out what dinner is, like so like it takes sacrifices going with one another, and then to have like the dreams and the relationship, they're kind of both like marriages, right? Like you're kind of like when you have that dream and you're married to the dream, you really go full after the yeah, gotta commit to it. It's that vow you take to yourself of like this is the it's the vow for the dream, right? And then when you're in a relationship, you develop and you go with each other and you try to you create that other vow to develop a family, right? And that's one of the things. Like for men, it's really like legacies. Like what kind of legacies? For women, the legacy is the family. So it's like I think like dreams are somewhat like different from men and women in a sense. And then one of the hard things too is like sometimes like remember you saying like I remember like that little thing that you just said like coming home from work and you want to talk about it and then but it's like oh sometimes I feel bad because like sometimes I do that to all I do that to all
Because he's taking all the cameras like
yeah. I mean, I'll be on my computer or something, and I'll just tell her like, hey, babe, just give me just a little bit, just give me just a little bit longer, just then we can like sit down and talk intentionally, just so I don't have like, don't have like one ear open, but then I'm like, when I'm doing like tasking on the other ear, I'm like, I want to give you like my full attention, right? So that takes like takes a sacrifice, right? It's like it's sacrificing like just the amount of time just for this intentional time later, and that even goes into like in relationships too. It's like there's a story that I love, The Alchemist by Robert Cosio. Yeah, I think so. I think that was his name. And yeah, right, so good. So in The Alchemist, they talk about the man in the desert and the woman of the oasis. So the man in the desert has this dream and a calling, and chases the dream and the calling. The woman of the oasis, like she has her own dream, she has her own calling, but the man of the desert, he was gonna stay in the oasis. Like so in the desert, it's like the oasis is basically like you have palm trees, water, it's just like that only green area in there. So the woman in the oasis, she was gonna stay there, and the man of the desert was gonna stay in the oasis and forget about his dream, forget about going to the pyramids and all that. And the woman in the oasis told him like, you can't forget about that. You can't go after it because then it goes down onto her later on, and then she's gonna have the downfall of like, oh, the guy was still gonna have the dream in his head. Like the man of the desert will still have that dream in his head, even as time goes on, even as he develops his family. And sooner or later, that dream fades, and it goes away. Like just because time wouldn't be able to do it, right? So then the woman of the desert, the woman of the oasis, understands that the man can't stay in the sanctuary, can't stay in the oasis because later on it's gonna fall down to her, and he will resent being with the woman of the oasis because and of the sanctuary too because he had this dream, could have went after it, and the dream stayed alive in his head up until his death. And it's like not even the effort of going there just for the sanctuary and oasis. And like that woman in the oasis knew that she knows that they can't go through. So that's like the hard balance part of dreams and relationship too. Like which dream stays alive, or like how can you even merge the dreams together in a sense? Because everybody has dreams, and it's just like how do you keep them alive, and or how do you even like merge them? Because we all want to see like all the dreams come true. We all want to see things that come true for it. Um,
I think I have like two different analogies, and I don't think one is better than the other. You guys seen the movie Click with Adam Sandler?
Yeah.
It's a very funny movie that teaches you that his wife was never replaceable, and his kids and his parents. So it teaches you the value of that scenario. Like when you invest only in business and you neglect the family and other things that are not going to be there all the time. What is it? Where you're putting your priorities, your time and efforts, And then at the end of the movie, you see that he's trying to tell his son, "Don't make the same mistake I made," kind of like The Alchemist. But then on the other hand, I don't know if you guys watched this movie called Something the Lord Made. It's a true story about Vivian A. Thomas. He's like he pursues his dream, and he puts all this effort. He goes against all odds. He was this African American pioneer in the heart in the cardiologist world. He didn't have a degree. He got a PhD by practicing instead of studying. So he did the practice and study at the same time. Is that wrong too? Because he had a life, and he was so dedicated to that. And when he went and he left the job, how did he feel? Even his wife recognized, like, you're not the same. So I think there needs to be like choosing the right partner for your dream too. Because if your partner is also like just thinking about you're not here,
And they feel neglected.
exactly, they feel neglected. But then if you love your partner, you're gonna understand that person can't be 100% if they don't also chase their dreams, and they help you chase yours. So I think it's very hard. It's almost like you work so hard to build a castle with 1,000 rooms, but all the rooms are empty.
Mm. I also think it's the
Great.
way that you go after your dream, right? Because first it comes from the self, and then that's what's like reflected out. So the two examples you gave, the character in Click, he needed the job to give him validation, and he was getting angrier and angrier that he wasn't getting the promotion. He's like, I deserve all this stuff. So he wanted it to like boost his ego and to validate who he was as a man, but he didn't see that the love he had with his family, that is what like made him who he was. Versus Vivian, he was very humble. Like he loved education, he loved his wife, he wanted that to go after his dream because he just loved it. And I think there's a difference. If you take somebody who's thirsting for validation, power, status, versus somebody who just wants to like go after what they love out of pure joy, you'll have two different scenarios. The marriages for this person A, they all fail because anybody who gives them the validation, they'll just run with them. Versus somebody who's in a loving relationship, who knows that he's enough or she's enough, they're not thirsting for like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like they're not thirsting for that.
I got point five.
Does it?
Tell me, she.
Yeah.
So, which the topic of relationship and choosing the right partner. Like for example, as you get older, the list of what you're looking for gets more exclusive, right? I'll let Justin walk into this one.
I agree, man. I think
Fire shot.
You know what you want.
I think not even just a matter of like how much you know what you want, but I think the expectations become a lot more visible as far as like what you may want, but there's a difference with the dynamic. It's like what you want versus what you need.
Mhm.
That's another like very dire decision you have to like face when you're, whether you're dating or you're in a relationship later in life, because there's a lot of things that we think we need that you don't necessarily need. You just want. It's like you want to have the hottest sneakers, or the designer bags and stuff, but do you honestly need it? You can still get a bag to carry all your personal belongings and be just as fine. But um, I think it's all about just like the optics, like people saying like, "Oh, I want to have this, I want to do that," but you honestly don't need it. And in a relationship, and trying to grow and be a better person for a relationship, I think it's important to be able to find out what that means to you, because um you want to come into a relationship knowing what you can offer, and also what your values are, like what you value most, and what you can gain from your relationship. It's not that it's more so transactional, but it's a conglomerate. Like, you're working in tandem to bring each other happiness, and sacrifices have to be made. But it's never nothing bad to make those sacrifices. It's not like you're not getting your favorite snack at night. It's more so something that can, bring you longevity and happiness. And, to just quickly revisit what you brought up earlier when you said um, that when you're not present for your partner, or when they're not present for you, it just seems like you're just listening to respond rather than listening to understand. And you're right. That's the fusion for like an argument to start. And I think that's what strays people away from, instead of attacking the problem, we're attacking each other. Now I use that word loosely, attacking, because I mean in the sense of like you should address the issue, whether it's something that is amongst you two, or if it's something that's bothering one person just opposed to the other. I think if you are working together to say, hey, look, we're not the problem. This is the problem. Let's try to fix it. Sometimes I've been in relationships where like I've said that and they're like, oh, so you're just saying that like I'm part of the issue. I'm like, that's not even what I said. So it's a very, very um unusual uh place to be in. And it's like a double-edged sword. Sometimes you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you have no way of getting there. It's like, and that's just how tricky relationships are. It's a very scary situation to be in when you're just starting to ask yourself, like, is this something I'm doing? Am I not trying hard enough? And then the other person may be doing that, but overall, everybody has the same goals and the same aspirations. It's just you can't put it out there. It's like you train all season, and then, the first game of the year comes around, and then nobody can get it together. Nobody can score. Nobody can communicate. That's why I say the best way to start that path of like success is to do the work, which is communicate. And that's even in friendships. Anything that like has meaning and value to you, you have to put that into words, and you have to put that into effort and action.
You know what's more dangerous, since you mentioned about the communication, is when also people listen to just comply.
Yeah.
To be like that's even more dangerous to argue, because you're not even you're not, if you're the other person, you don't even know who you're talking to at that point. At work, a lot of people are trained to do this.
Yeah.
Listen to comply. It's like, no, listen. What you should do is listen, not only to understand, but to find solutions for everyone to win. And that, to me, when you were talking, I was like, the most dangerous things when you listen to comply. When you was like, yeah, you're right. Let's just get back to peace. It's like, are you really in peace? Is that really the solution you were seeking? And that is eventually is going to create the biggest problem of all, which is I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
I shut down because of that, and I just don't want to talk anymore. That even brings more negative effects
And that transcends into resentment.
and resentment. Exactly. So I want to hear about Kevin and Autumn about that question. The list of demands, when I wouldn't say list of demands, but what people seek in the other person. You're on the safe side, Kevin.
I know she thinks I'm perfect, which is great.
You should make a book, bestseller.
Yeah.
It's like Kevin, man.
Vanity Howard. Yeah.
She's a keeper, man. I told you.
Yeah, definitely. I know. She's great.
What are your thoughts, Kevin?
With the list that comes through,
Like for example, you're like he's saying your needs versus your wants when you're looking for that. Like take yourself when you were meeting Autumn.
yeah,
How did you view that meeting? What was the because you can have a perspective, but then you really need to analyze like she needs to be an addition of my peace and my harmony and my love.
yeah. So for needs and wants, first when I was like like I knew I wanted a relationship. Did I need what before I met on in my own head before even talking to her, I was like I want a relationship, but do I need a relationship? So that was even the first step I was going through in my own head, and then it was just too. I just couldn't miss the opportunity. So I was like, I need to have a relationship. So I reached out to her because I was like, I need her. So
I'm sorry, bullets here, brother.
yeah,
I was one punch away from just doing. I was like, I was. One of them the loose smiling face. I was like, that was tense, man.
I know. I had to reach out to her. I had to feel like in the right way.
It's fucking mad. It's so hard. I'm so sorry.
But yeah, so when we met in class, I realized that she was she was very smart. She was very intelligent. She was very intelligent. She was very goofy and fun. And she had a beautiful laugh. So I was like, I just need to have this girl, right? And I reached out to her. And it was amazing. And on our first date, it was great because we talked about the dreams. We talked about what we would like to do. We basically just talked about the world and recognizing that I wanting a relationship and then needing one, right? And then realizing that she lined up with what I wanted through life as well. So just in lining up with what I want in life as well was the perfect need in that relationship too, because it's how do you find the person that also wants something similar to what you want, and how can we help each other grow in that direction? So it was that. That's why that's why I needed her. And I knew that not that she needed me, but how I could help her even go into her dreams, right? As a boyfriend, as her man, I wanted to also support her in her dreams and see how can I also help her get what she wants while also providing for all our needs. Yeah, she taught me so much too. She taught me communication. Before I wasn't too well at communication or expressing my feelings, I guess. I barely even express them. But she taught me how to Autumn has taught me how to express my feelings, and also taught me how to express them in a way where the delivery isn't as harsh. Before, if I were to express my feelings, it was it wasn't as matured. My delivery would just be
maybe out of frustration or like
Yeah.
emotion, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be like somewhat emotional. It'll be like very stoic. Like it'll just be like, this.
Yeah.
And then she just told me like, hey, you don't always have to be stoic. Like you don't always have to be so harsh. So that I recognize like, oh, okay, I could deliver. I could say the same message in a different way. How do I say that same message in a different way without hurting her feelings, without hurting our relationship, and still getting to like the point of like of attacking the problem, not each other.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's not the message, it's the method.
yeah,
Something to be mindful.
That's
like,
good.
not the message.
I want to hear all of those, perspectives.
I think it's so enlightening because a lot of people, I feel like they like to point the finger at certain genders, like, oh, well, men don't know how to communicate, but you have to approach a relationship ready to be vulnerable. And so, like, I know with the feminist movement, right? Everybody's like, well, men they don't do this, they don't do that. But I don't agree with them because I'm like, you need somebody who's ready to go into a relationship, be vulnerable, but also ready to love the other person. And that takes a lot of self giving and sacrifice. But no, I just love that what you were saying about communication.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, like girls, they're not ready for that.
I think with maturity comes accountability too.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can attest to this, and I say that to him because, like I said, we're older. So when it comes to accountability, I think that's a huge factor in relationships. Like, I suffered from that when I was younger. Like, I was just telling myself, oh, it's not me, it's this person, it's not me. Like, you're allowed to self evaluate. You're allowed to evaluate others, but it's what you're doing with those results, with that data, that really defines if you're paying attention to like what you need to improve on and what you're willing to tolerate and what you can't. Like, it's like your values are battling with your boundaries. Now, I like, and imagine trying to balance all of that with your religious values, and then there's also your political values. All of that stuff goes into the melting pot when it comes into like your relationship. But I think accountability is huge because it's even in small things. Like if your girlfriend says, "Hey, can you take out the garbage?" You can say, "Yeah, I'll grab it in a bit." In some relationships, they'll be like, "Oh, so you telling me like you're not doing it like that?" It's been known that they can be transcribed as that. And then on the other hand, the guy could respond, "Damn, like I come home and I already got something to do." So there's there's a very thin line of opportunity for people to go, "Oh, hey, can you take out the garbage?" "Yeah, I'll get it in a moment, babe." He's gonna get it, and he's very polite and responsive with how he said he's gonna get it. Boom. But I think that, like I said, the accountability part. If one person says it, you have to be able to like either think about it right up front, like how would I respond to this, and how would I like to be responded?
Yeah.
Or, if you do something wrong, you say, "Oh, I could have changed my tone." And, just try to like, you know, um, correct that trajectory sooner than later. Because like Wendell said earlier, like a lot of times if you don't address things like while it's fresh, it becomes to fester. And then it's like anything else in life, it will decay and over time it will just become infectious. So for me, I think there's a big difference when you talk about like, oh, when you want to be in a relationship or when you need to, because you have to be willing to make a lot of those sacrifices, and some of them, and most of them, involve accountability and also communication. Some people don't like to talk. Some people use their emotions or their habits. Like, the worst thing that I've ever encountered when I was dating, well, one of the worst things. I got to want to be good. The silent treatment. I hate that. I hate that. I've dated before, and I'll bump heads with my partner about something stupid like, "Oh, you didn't get the flash pass at Disney World on time, and now we gotta wait online." Okay, so now we spoke about that. We had a disagreement, but guess what? Now we spend the whole 8 hours in the park not saying a word. Why?
Yeah.
You're spending like $400 or $500 to be at the happiest place on earth, and nobody saying a word to each other. Like, not to be literal, but maybe I'm actually speaking from experience in that exact situation. But yeah, that's terrible, you know. And then like you can try to be the person that reach over and go, hey, you know, let's bury the hatchet. You know, it doesn't mean it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Those are difficult parts of the relationship where you have to figure out like, okay, am I sacrificing something for the good or for the worse, like you
Right.
mentioned earlier. So it's a lot to take on. But I think what's important is just, you know, continuing to focus on how much you're pouring in versus how much you're getting out.
Yeah.
And, you know, just making sure that your goals are aligning. Because some people are in relationships for the wrong reason. Like I said, it can be for optics, financial security, um, and just overall, like people afraid of being alone.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's a bad problem too. You know, I've been through every phase of like, you know, damn, I shouldn't be in a relationship for this reason, or I shouldn't be in for that reason. And then there's times when you might get to a point where you might have passed up on a good opportunity to be with somebody that can make you happy just because you didn't think like it was good enough for you at that time.
Mm.
It's tough, but these are just challenges that you're gonna face in life if you know, if be the case. But it's important to still be aware of them. So if it ever rears its ugly head in your relationship or friends of yours or family, and you feel like you can lend a hand, like these are things that you can really give as a piece of advice.
I love that.
It's funny because of one of the things that the attitude that somebody has when they shut down, it's like, what are they trying to communicate?
Yeah.
And it's difficult because at that moment you're like trying your best and you're like, why is this person just shutting down?
Yep.
So one of the things that we learn about that kind of behavior is give them what they want. You're not going to win the battle
Yes.
by injecting communication. It's like, I understand you need time for yourself right now. You'll see the reaction immediately because that person really doesn't want to be alone. They just are big, they're bothered by something that is not literally you. It was just like the action, but it's not you. They have a hard time disconnecting or like, hey, it's not him. It was the action.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to separate the one with the other. That's why they shut down. They mix it all together in one bowl. But once you do that, because that's also behavioral, you're teaching that person, I'm going to give you what you need. You need space and time to reflect. I'm going to remove myself from that situation so you can really understand what is the real problem. Is the problem me, my presence, or is the problem the issue that we have? Exactly. So now, once you remove yourself, and then they're like, where is he? Like or she? And I wanted you guys were talking. This reel that came into my head. It's a reel that to me it's hilarious. There's a guy like laying down on the couch, and then he sees his wife coming in, and she starts like measuring things on the wall, and the bottom it says like the most disturbing thing for a woman is seeing a man resting. And that thing cracks me up all the time because I know it's not true, but that's also a way of communicating, right? Like for example, if your wife or your couple tells you, "Hey, help me with this," there's a lot of guys that also, "Yeah, I'll do it later," and just and so what do women do? Like they will go and say, "Hey, I'm gonna try to do it even if it's wrong." So now it obligates the person to there.
And then it might look like he didn't have intention of doing it because she got to it before him. It's mean, but it's right. A lot of men come from real life situations.
But it's hilarious because the way they put it, they victimize the man. Right? Like they're like, women can't stand seeing a man. It's like, really? She probably told you 1,000 times to do something, and you just. But the importance of communication, in any relationship, and to me, like the list or something that you're trying to gain, because it's a gain that you seek when you're in a relationship. And the gain, believe it or not, is not receiving, is giving. Because the more you give, the more you invest. And the more you invest, what is that person going to do with that investment? They have to make a choice. So if you love somebody, right, and you keep pouring that love, and keep pouring that love, there's going to be a point where she's like, or he or she, they're going to be like, I'm overwhelmed with this, and I feel great about it. maybe I need to start acting in the same way. So you're motivating the other person by your actions on how to react and be proactive about sharing that context of love. And when you were talking about the feminist group, there's also a lot of resentment. Why? Because back in the 30s, 40s, guys were abandoning women. Like it was like, hey, I'm gonna go buy a cigarette. They were gone with another family, and left kids behind. So I understand that, but that shouldn't be the price for men to pay because not every guy is doing the same thing, especially nowadays with our beautiful child support system. Yeah, holds you accountable till like 21. So that's what I'm saying. Like the radicals are, I've never seen the feminist group go out there and fight for what's just when a woman pretends that the father, like they fathered their son, and that they find out that it's not. I've never seen somebody fighting for that kind of. As a matter of fact, there's a funny case, um, and you guys can tell me what you think. I think the judge was clever. This guy goes into court and finds out that both of his kids are not biologically his after 13 years.
Oh.
So he's like, well, we gotta protect the kids. So you're still gonna pay child support no matter what. And so he's like, it sucks. So what the judge did, well, I can't. That's a law. I can't go against it. But what he did is like, we're gonna take a penny every month. But that's what I'm saying. Like, when you go radical, you don't look at what really matters, which is justice on both sides.
Yeah.
Because the same thing if you have a wife beater, we men should go out there and be like,
Yeah.
yo, you making us look bad.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? You don't represent us. So it's the same way on the other side. I believe we have to really have the accountability of go to make the world a little bit more fair, no matter if you're in the left or the right. And continue with the topic of relationship. It, what has been the worst experience and the best experience you had in a relationship? You know, Mines are funny as hell. So
Wait, before we answer that, because I do want to answer.
yeah.
I just want to say two things. That's why with the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case that's going on right now in the media, I think it's so important to pay attention to because what she did was accuse him of sexual harassment because she wanted to own his movie rights. And I think like you take somebody who's she just assumed like everybody is a part of the Me Too movement, so they'll just attack this man, and he's innocent, and he's literally like showing everybody the text messages, all the receipts, everything, and she's lying, and I feel like there's no like that wasn't there's no respect there to do that, and she's promoting a movie about domestic violence, and yet you're showing what I'm saying, the message is so off because women who actually are abused, who actually go through harassment, you're silencing them now because now no one's going to believe a woman. So that case has been driving me insane. I've been tuning in. And then also there's a phrase that I really can't stand. It's when people say you complete me to each other. Because I feel like you have to be whole when you get into a relationship. You can't get into a relationship and think that that person is going to fill all of your needs. It's already doomed to fail. The first relationship that you're present to are your parents. And unfortunately, for most of us, like for me, I didn't witness a good first relationship. And that's stuff that I had to work through in my early 20s because when it was time for me to pick a partner, I can't pick somebody who reflected like, and my dad's a great guy, but he had a lot of flaws, and I can't, my first instinct would be to find somebody who's exactly like him subconsciously. But I have to do the work so that I can know like I'm loved, I'm valued on my own, and I don't need someone who's going to, at least for me, fill that in me. And I think that's why a lot of relationships end up like a seesaw because they're looking to their partner to fill this void in them that they need to work through on their own. And I love what you're saying about the wants and the needs because you can want to be in a relationship. That's why you have serial daters. They need to be in a relationship because you can't be alone because if I'm alone, I'm not loved. When in reality, you need to let those areas be loved on and those wounds to be healed so you can be whole as a mother and a wife, husband and a father, that when you're making a new generation, you don't pass on those same, I don't want to call them mistakes, but the same hurts generationally. And so it's with the silent treatment too. Like maybe people have never felt heard, or like in their own home, they never feel like they're listened to. So it's like, I'm not even going to talk. But you need to identify that single, basically, so that when you get into a relationship, it can be healthy because that person is not perfect either. They've gone through their own hurts, their own journeys to come together realistically and say, like, I want to love you the best way that you are now, not somebody I'm conjuring up in my mind, but the you that's in front of me. Because you can't force somebody to change. Like, that person will be themselves forever. But, good changes come a long way. But, if you get with someone and you're like, I'm going to mold him to be the person I want him to be. No,
This was like you could pass a spell or something.
like a sculptor, I'm going to sculpt this part of him down. And, you have to embrace who's there. So, sorry, now you can answer the question.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on what you were saying because it's true. Like, a relationship shouldn't be a responsibility of completion of the other person.
Mm-hmm.
It should be an education on both sides. Are you both learning from each other? And like you said, past relationships, like, for example, your parents, that's the first loving relation you experience. It's like, you guys, we also have to remember there are no real books to be a great parent. You learn that through your own experience and circumstances. And it's hard sometimes because you ask yourself, why did I have to go? But what's more important is like, well, this is the life that, I had to live. I got to try to make the best out of it. Because at the end of the day, like, you can choose of always thinking about the past or living your present to build a future. And that's a hard choice to make because the resentment sometimes holds you, right? And what you've seen and the traumas and the wounds that are still open. But it's a choice too, because you can also choose to heal and keep walking. And then, as a matter of fact, forgiveness. When you learn how to forgive, that's when you start like breaking down all those walls and you start building all these beautiful bridges for those that you once resented, but also for yourself to feel free in those realms. And like I said, the responsibility that you should have in a relationship is, be responsible for your actions. Be responsible for how you're thinking about, how you incorporate that person into your life. And also have a strategy and a plan on how to become one. Because I think that's another thing. People fail to become one. They don't understand. It's like the purpose is you are LLC, Autumn LLC, you're Kevin LLC, and then once you match me, we should, So I think that's a big struggle. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm so sorry, Kevin.
No.
Autumn is on fire, man. She's like,
You can ask your question now. I'm sorry. I just I had to throw that
no,
out.
that was good. That was good. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. The purpose of relationship, right? Purpose of relationship is, at least it was funny. So we were talking about this with the priest the other day. Like, what is the purpose of marriage, right? And the purpose of marriage is it's becoming one, building the family, creating like that. It's basically like becoming one, building a family, being fruitful, all that. That's like one reason of marriage, and another reason of purpose of marriage is to be that support, to be that need for the other person. Not for yourself, but for who you're marrying, for that other person. Being like, how can I be there fully for them? I think like the purpose of relationships is somewhat to be selfless, right? And it's to be selfless for that person. And like everybody has their own needs. Everybody has like, and it works so well when both parties are being selfless, because then one party will recognize like where do I need to be for them here, and then they'll see it. Like if they're being selfless, they'll see it, and if they don't see it, like being selfless in an act of like communication, because sometimes it's like for example with the silent treatment, that's selfish. It's holding it in. It's not being selfless and letting the other person know. Um, so that's like a selfish act. And then to be like selfless in a relationship, I guess like through like even like through arguments or through disagreements is basically like putting like ego, like ego checking the self to be selfless. Like sometimes it's our ego that gets in the way of relationships. I kind of want to like merge it into now like friendships in a way. Like how do we have the how like what makes like a great friendship? Because like that's one of the things that I struggle with sometimes friendships where uh, like like when I was coming up for my dreams and like talking about the sacrifices, like all my friends used to live in used to live in Manhattan. I was in Staten Island, so even just to hang out with them, it would take around 2 hours just to get there, as in like travel just to get to like upper Manhattan, and, like to get all the way there. So then, if I wanted to hang out with them, like I would want to make it like past like a 4 hour trip, or if like a 4 hour day, because then my travel is just 4 hours. So if I'm going to travel 4 hours, yeah, right, I want to make it work for that. So like while I was coming up with my dreams, I realized like time is like one of those big things. So I couldn't like spend like a full day like in the city doing something while going to college, working, and then trying to chase another thing. Um, so that's one of the things I had to sacrifice. Like I had to sacrifice French, like one of those friendships in my beginning stages. I guess now that's one of the things I wonder, like what makes a great friendship. Is it the same thing of? It's not the same thing as being in a relation in an intimate relationship. I guess what makes that? What makes the friendships great friendships?
What are your thoughts, Just? Because even Justin, Kevin is mentioning something that kind of like kept me thinking. Right, today people want more partnership than marriage.
I think because partnerships, uh, some people agree with me that partnerships are more subsequently easier than marriage. Marriages are like full on. Everybody's got all their cards on the table. Their investments, their emotions, their upbringing, anything. It's everything's on the table, everything's up for grabs. But I think with a partnership or a relationship, it's a little bit more, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, but we're here collectively, you know. Um, and I think that's what has people fearful about that next stage of relationships, which is marriage. The divorce rate is like through the roof. Nothing like what it was like, for like baby boomers and times after that, because people back then were reliant on marriage. They there was a sanctity behind it, but it was also like tradition. I think a lot of people are getting married for the wrong reasons. Like I said, just for like financial security or just like overall the race against the clock. People don't want to like fall behind and be that auntie or uncle at the table. Like, well, what's up with you? Why you didn't get married? Because people start to ask questions. So I think there's a lot of deformity and conformity that goes along with it. But um, what's important is just knowing like why you want to be there in that space of like holy matrimony and all the things that come with it. And also asking yourself, like, is it right for you? I was talking to a young lady the other day and she kept bragging, like, oh, I want to be married and this and that. I just kept listening to her for a course of a few weeks. She's like, yeah, this finger needs to get some hardware. And this, and I was like, okay, I let her talk and stuff. And then finally, I was just like, why do you want to get married? How do you know you're ready? Well, I think that I'm deserving. I have a lot of qualities and things like that. I was like, really? Do you? you know that this comes along with marriage, this, and like, are you ready to have those sacrificial conversations where, like, you know, it's not about you, and it's also about like what you're willing to sacrifice to really be in that relationship. And she's like, well, you know, and then you start to like unpack the reasons why people may not realize, like I said, it's a want rather than a need, you know? Because I could tell she was only saying it for the optics aspect of it. You want the hardware, but you don't want the the actual
Sacrifice.
the sacrifice and the materials that come along with it. You know, everybody wants to make all the money, but they don't want to work the hard, long hours. They don't want to break day, get into the bag, and things like that. So, you know, I feel like it's the same with relationships. It's the same with marriage. You know, people, you know, you know why you want it, but you don't know why you need it. So, um, I think for me personally, like I've never been married. Have I considered it with past partners? Yeah. But at the same time, you can kind of tell when your counterpart is in a space where they're like ready for that. You know, I haven't necessarily been in that position, but I do feel like the times that it was like close to that, I feel like the partners I had were just saying like, "Oh, I want it just for the comfort of knowing like, hey, look, I'm not gonna be that redhead stepchild that isn't able to go to these parties with my girls and say, or my boys and say, hey, I'm getting engaged and things like that. Because, you know, there are men who fold under pressure as well, like where they feel like they have to make their parents happy and, you know, get married and have kids and things like that. And, you know, it's important to understand, like, why you need it. So, I think for me personally, like, I've never been married. Have I considered it with past partners? Yeah. But at the same time, you can kind of tell when your counterpart is in the space where they're like ready for that. You know, I haven't necessarily been in that position, but I do feel like the times that it was like close to that, I feel like the partners I had were just saying like, oh, I want it just for the comfort of knowing like, hey, look, I'm not gonna be that redhead stepchild that isn't able to go to these parties with my girls and say, or my boys and say, hey, I'm getting engaged and things like that. 'Cause, you know, there are men who fold under pressure as well, like where they feel like they have to make their parents happy, you know, get married and have kids and things like that. And, you know, it's important to understand like why you're doing it and you know, what's the real, um, you know, purpose for why you're doing
Yeah, I would love to hear all this thought because if you watch 90, you guys are familiar with 90 Day Fiance? Oh my,
Kind of.
yeah. So if you watch that, it should be taken as a guidebook of why you shouldn't get married.
it. Yeah.
Like it should be like they should
These
they
are
should
all examples.
exactly look. If you don't know if you want to get married, watch a few episodes of 90 Day Fiance because also there we live in a very digital world where today we can have relationships at long distances and we shorten the distance by using technology. But how much do you really get to know somebody until you start living with them, right? You know, unless obviously you're Kevin, molded perfectly, you know, no flaws.
Many flaws.
I think guys are gonna hate me after this. It was like, oh, Kevin again. But that's what I'm saying. So you start living then. Do you guys believe that people don't really invest wisely their time to know somebody? But also, do they really also start learning about themselves when they start to learn about, who they're choosing as a potential partner? What are your thoughts about that, guys? All
Well, that's why I'm saying, you have to really be in touch with yourself before you get into a relationship. And I love that you were bringing up the divorce rates because I was having a conversation with someone the other day and they were saying the divorce rates are through the roof, but when you like dive into the surveys, the couples who like go to church together, the divorce rates are lower, or the couples who like wait for marriage, the divorce rates even lower. And then like couples in marriage who don't use contraception, it's even lower. So it's like there is like a small group of people, it's probably like a good amount, who value marriage and where it's like upheld. But I really think it takes a lot of inner work to even get there. Because if you don't, like the 90 Day Fiance, if you're just going because you're like, and what you're saying, you just want the ring, you just want the like white picket fence, there are everyday challenges that come up in a marriage that you have to be ready to embrace. You know, those vows are not empty words or empty promises. There's a woman I love. She's on her way to sainthood, but her name is Blessed Chiara Corbella. She got married, and then while she was pregnant, they found out that her baby was being formed without a skull. And the doctors were pressuring her to get an abortion. And she was like, why would I abort my child? Like, this is the child that God wanted me to have. And she gives birth, and the baby only lived 30 minutes afterwards. And her husband, they like embraced each other and they rejoiced over the baby's life, even if he was alive for 30 minutes. Then she got pregnant again the second time around, and the baby had a rare, like, disease where he was developed with no legs. And same thing, the doctors were like, you can't give birth, like you need to abort the baby. And she was like, I'm not doing that. And her husband, they like came together, and then when she gave birth, I think he lived only 20 minutes outside of the womb. And then he passed away. And the people who went to the baby's funeral, they said like they both played instruments. So the husband was playing guitar and she was playing the flute. And they said it was like you wouldn't even know it was a funeral. It was so beautiful, the amount of love in the room. And then she gets pregnant a third time, and she gets diagnosed with cancer. And they wanted her to abort the baby because they're like, you need to get cancer treatment. She's like, absolutely not. And it metastasized to her eye. And she ended up giving birth, and then like the cancer ran through her body, and she ended up dying. And she wrote the most. So her and her husband Enrico, they were talking about what can we give to our baby, like what's a good gift. And so she was like, let's write him a letter. I'll send you the letter. It's the most beautiful letter you can ever read. And I think about that, and I'm like, when they said I do to each other, they didn't know, like Enrico didn't know I'm gonna lose my wife, like giving birth. There's so many things in marriage that can come up, and it really like erases right away the superficiality of it, because you're vowing to this person like through thick or through thin, through poor, through wealth. Like, I will be here with you, I will love you. Especially for the man. You know how, I'm sure that must be so hard for you guys to sit and watch like something like that happen to your wife, but to be there and like Enrico just and love Kiara and get her through that, and her love back, like that in my head is a beautiful marriage, because it really speaks to our generation now. Like, you don't know what's laying beyond the I do. Anything could happen. We have these like picture perfect lives we think can unfold, but in reality, there are crosses, there are sufferings, and you need the partner who's going to be there to remind you, like you said, everything's going to be okay, and there's happiness like in loving each other. But yeah, I'll send you guys that letter. It's really beautiful.
It's nice. Who wants to kick in that question?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So the question was, it was about relationships, and people are choosing more partnerships than marriage, and why you think that's. And also, Justin kicked in the divorce rate, and Autumn is giving us a better perspective. Like, where does the divorce rate actually equates heavier? So, what are your thoughts about
So when you're in partnerships, it's I guess it's when you're in partnerships, it's about equality. When you're in marriage, it's about becoming one. So in that marriage section, when you become one with that person, it's like whatever I do is going to impact that. Like, even in a partnership, whatever you do is going to impact that partner. So, I want that a little bit deeper. Yeah.
that? But isn't that like a contract, a partnership? You need to fulfill your side, and I will fulfill mine, and the arc we both pour in. And so, like, for example, marriage is about building equity together,
Yeah.
where like it doesn't matter if you put more or less. That's the way I would say it. Partnership is like they can hold you accountable if you're a partner. Think about it
Hmm.
like you have a partnership in a company. Say, hey, uh, you only made 30% sales. I made 70, and they hold you accountable because you can't, comply with what the other person is. How do you do that?
Mm. Actually, that's a very great point because like it is that like you can't it is that partnership where it's like oh you can run through with the numbers with the halves and the splits, but in the marriage part you can't run through in the with those numbers. It's kind of like it's in the marriage part. It's like that life. It's life section. It's those mundane sections. It's not always going to be about the extravagance or the extraordinary things, right? Like in that marriage part, it's going to be like sometimes it's going to be about those errands and how you run them errand and how you run those errands together. Sometimes it's going to be about um when having a family, and sometimes it's gonna be about maybe like that one person like really goes in on the kid for like 3 or 4 days just because one person can't handle for one section, and then they'll switch out, and then there'll be two people going in for that, or it could be that one. It's really like I guess I'm a very visual person, so for partnerships, it's about splitting the pie, right? And then for marriage, it's about how to work the pie. So like in a partnership, it's like if you go 5-5 with somebody, it's this person gets five, this other person gets five. And in marriage, you can't go 5-5 with somebody because the pie is both of your guys' stuff. It's really about like how to how to manage the sections of the pie. Like how do you manage laundry, cooking, like the really mundane, the cleanings, the going out to run errands, grocery shop, etc., etc. How do you manage those pieces in a marriage? Because like yeah, I think that's one of those things. And when marriages fail, I think it's about like it is on that communication, and it's also about that. It's I heard a quote before where it's like so 1,000 arguments that weren't made. So it's really like not communicating what you need from that person, and divorce rates like rising. It's back then really like the man really needed the woman, the woman really needed the man. Like back then, like for just let's just say like on the job front, financial front, things like that as well. Like the guy was the one who went out, did the services and and was providing. Like women now, they go out, they can also provide for themselves and also get the services and all that. So they just I think sometimes it's not on the man's fault for the divorce that happened. Just like sometimes it's like the woman who is just like it's that feminist movement. I don't need no man. I'm just work.
Yes, with the attitude. I don't need no ring.
Yeah, I don't need no man. Period. That's
But it also goes back to like perception, right? Because for example, I would love to hear Justin and Autumn's opinion about it. For example, let's say Justin goes and meets a woman that has 3 kids. It's easier acceptable by society that he takes care of those kids, right? And he becomes this, fostering father for them, fostering figure father, and also like it's okay, like even if he puts his resources towards their education. For a guy, like for a woman, a good woman comes and say, "I love you. You have 3 kids, and I'm gonna support you." Like, why do you think there's a big unbalance of viewing that perspective? Like we talk about a lot in society about we want equality and all these things. What are your thoughts about this?
I think that it's talked about more than it's actually put into play. And the worst thing you can do is say to yourself, I'm gonna go into a relationship with somebody, and like you said, you're gonna what's the word look for settle in some areas, and you're gonna just say, all right, well, even though this isn't what I expected, I'll deal with it. You don't want to go into that. You want to kind of know that you're getting what you need from it, and you're also giving what your partner needs, and it's only for the better. But every relationship is different. It might not be enough what they're requiring, and it might be exhausting for you. I just think that it's important to understand why you're there, what you're doing, and if it's helping or hurting. Because relationships are quite exhausting. Just like jobs, just like raising kids. Relationships are very exhausting, but nothing can make the rest of that easier unless your relationship is in a good space. So I feel like it's important to, as they say, take care of things at home because that's what that means. Like if you're doing what you got to do at home, um, it makes it a lot more, you know, uh, progressive to take care of things and be in a more successful situation with your partner. But I think the thing I want to add to that is, will people start to understand that it's important to know what you're doing when you take on the next stage of a relationship. Like if you start out dating or if you jump quickly into hey, life planning, just have a course set and understand where you're going. It's an adventure is exciting and so are journeys, but when you actually have an objective and an overall goal that you're trying to accomplish, you when you have that in your itinerary, that's why you're doing it, and there's an overall purpose behind it, and your partner's on board with that. I think it gives you the best opportunity to be a successful space. I'm not speaking from experience necessarily, but I'm just saying with all of the data I've collected and all of the examples I've had before me, I think that that's the most profitable way to benefit.
What's your take on? Because it's always this perspective that there's a role. I have a friend that he does all the domestic work. His wife is the one that puts all the bread, and it works for them. But I can
Work for others.
exactly. But I can imagine what people outside how they form opinions about something that works for them without knowing the depth of their relationship. And it's very unfair sometimes to make comments. What are your takes?
Based on the rules. I know there's that saying, right? Like the man is the head of the household and then the woman is like the neck. So like she holds him up and then he can run things. Your question before was really interesting though about if a guy has 3 kids versus if a woman has 3 kids. That made me think. I don't know. I feel like a woman has no issue because we are very maternal and nurturing. So I think if a woman sees a man with 3 kids, her heart automatically wants to mother, and she doesn't count the cost because a woman will love with her whole heart, and so she wants to come in and it's very emotional and loving. Versus a man, I don't know if he. I feel like it's rare when you hear a guy comes in and he takes care of her 3 children, which I think is very interesting. But so roles inside of the house, I think. Yeah, it could be different per household, but I think a good relationship works when the woman allows her man to be masculine and when the masculine man allows the woman to be feminine. Because if you don't allow those 2 roles to lead, it's very disordered. Because then, you know, I hate to say this, but I don't know a lot of men who like masculine women. And sometimes it happens because they want to exert their strength. You can't hurt me. I can take care of myself. But it also is a good evaluation. Is your man allowing you to be in your femininity? Or is he kind of like you were mentioning, safe space, right?
Mhm.
Is he giving you a safe space where you can come undone and want to talk about your day and go over things? And vice versa, too. is the woman like sturdy in her femininity where she can allow him to be masculine, allow him to open the door for you, allow him to like open the car door for you, or just to be a gentleman in your life and not have this connotation like I can do it myself. Like, yes, you could do it yourself, but we were made to be in harmony, not to like fight each other with like a joust. You know, it's supposed to be like a beautiful coming together. And men and women are different, but we have to celebrate those differences because when they're celebrated, that's what makes us mesh together so well.
I'll throw this one on Kevin because what you both guys hit it on the nail because we confuse our ego and pride with being feminine and masculine. I'll give you a good example. I don't need no man. Like Kevin would say, is that something very feminine? No, it doesn't represent that because the true expression of being feminine is not that expression. That's being prideful and egocentric. And just like men, when they're like, yeah, I'll just find another woman. It's like, no, because women are not a possession. They're not something material, something you earn. So what are your thoughts about that, Kevin? Like, like how people confuse being masculine and feminine with being egocentric. And also, I would say even, trying to become dominant. What are they trying to dominate?
That's very true. Very true. I think like when talking about masculinity and dominating, a lot of people try to think like dominating is masculine, like alpha males. Like we all know the alpha males. Like they try to dominate beta males or things like that, or try to dominate their surroundings, and it's like doesn't work, you know. Like they can't. It's like domination. Dominating is not like it's not a high virtue of a man. Right? Like the masculine traits come from. They come from like how can you be a foundation? Like how can you be the security? How can you be the four walls of a castle, right? Like how can you be the protector of Eden in a sense? How can you protect the garden? And it doesn't mean like you gotta be harsh. Like it doesn't mean that you gotta do that. Like there's a lot of people know the term like toxic masculinity, which isn't like really toxic masculinity. Just like it was being misused a lot. Like alpha male dominating things. That's like toxic, you know. Like it was like you don't really need any of that. Like I'm pretty sure we have managers that were like that in the sense where they'll try to do something like that. And it's just like that's it.
Hold on.
Yeah, and then it's like so that's like the male side is like figure out the masculine is like it's supporting one another. It's being a firm foundation. It's standing by what you believe in. It's being support, right? Like it's servicing. It's servicing to your highest good, and the best way that you can. Like service is really one of those great ways. Like just think about everything that the world is made for men that service. Like think about even that house that we're in right now, the building that we're in. Men made this building. They serviced themselves to make this building. Etc. So service is like one of those big things. I learned a lot. I recently learned a lot from the walk about being a man from following Jesus. Like he has a lot. Like there's so many traits we can even learn from the religions about being just like a righteous man. You have honor. You have righteousness. You have a lot of traits that come in, and then like being like. Looking for the femininity, looking for the feminine perfection. It's like it's modest beauty. It's kind of this soft tenderness. It's like
there's some toughness in there.
Yeah, there's some toughness. Yeah, then
you're a guy. You know what I'm talking about. Like, women are scary sometimes to us guys. Like that's the way. Like you like we feel intimidated sometimes when we know that you don't like something. We know that we did it, and we're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna hear it now. Like it's gonna be like a sermon. You deserved it, right? Because
And that's it.
we feel intimidated. Don't get me wrong. How many of you guys experience that? Like when you know that you did something. It's like,
Yeah, definitely. Well, sometimes I play into it a little bit, you know, like I like,
you go there for
wow, something like
like,
that. But it's good to,
feel like Autumn brought you all these like flowers from pizza.
yeah, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
she already knows. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask this question, and this is taking a little bit the relationship, going into more of the relationship of Elon Musk and being in political power.
oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, so bring it down there right now. And maybe we'll have Elon Musk come, halftime Super Bowl. He'll probably perform better.
Knock on wood.
What are your thoughts, Autumn, about Elon Musk and what he's trying to achieve, and now that he's in the political spectrum?
Um, Elon Musk is a very interesting character. I think he's very intelligent. Um, I just forgive me. I was thinking about. I know like the headlines have been booming right now that he just like fathered another child, which I have so many thoughts on that because I feel like from his beliefs are kind of like because he has such a high IQ, like he should father a lot of children. But if you listen to his children, like how what they talk about, like there's no father in each home, And I think like a lot of our men of today and daughters of today, when they grow up in a fatherless household, it's a very it's a lingering wound for a lot of people, and that creates like fatherless children create fatherless children, and it's a sad like cycle. So I don't support what he's doing because I think if he were to have like a strong family unit and he could have as many children as he wants with his one wife, that promotes a better message than what he's doing. He's very sloppy, in my opinion. And
I think the answer you was
The sloppy Joe guy.
he's very sloppy. Actually, I was listening to an interview where his first wife, she said she was a starter wife for him. And they had 6 children together. And then he like divorced her, and the cycle like kind of went on, and just made me sad because I'm like, his older child, I think she's a transgender child right now, and she was saying like, if I had a nickel for every time I found out I had a half sibling out there, I'd be really rich. So it just makes me sad because I know like they don't actually have their dad in their house, and that's a wound that children carry. It subliminally, like he can throw as much money as he wants at his kids, but they have an ache in their heart.
But then we would be getting to Mars at the same time. Like that's the hard part too.
I disagree though because I think like a man, it shouldn't like his dreams. It shouldn't be separate from his family. Like because he's
But
like
Mars, it takes a lot of time to get to Mars.
No, but Autumn's saying something interesting because she's saying like he's treating it like it's a starter home.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna build this house. It's gonna be a starter home, and I'll sell it, and then I'll move on and build a bigger house.
Like as children too, like when your dad is a great man who has a great job, you want to support your father. And I feel like to have it in 2 categories, I don't agree with that. It's just not a good message, and I don't like what he stands for in his personal life. In his business life, he's an entrepreneur. He's so intelligent, and that's great. But I think we need strong men, role models out there who can show you like you can work and you can have a family, and you don't have to treat women as
We're
gonna reproduce. Like we gotta start holding our men to be accountable too, to value their families, and also women. Pick a good man. Yeah, sorry, I have a lot to say.
Just
Anyway.
who wants you to just or
And then
I like that perspective.
Love all, I guess.
Yeah, I love it.
She's on the roll. I think it's very, very, very cut and dry. That
And it's real.
it is. It's real. Everybody has to know their roles. And it's important to like with the whole thing, like what Elon does is kind of like, okay, like you said, you're promoting this thing where you're having all these kids because you want to make all of these smart children and things like that, but you're leaving these fatherless households at risk of like missing out on a wholesome family. So I think like they always say, too much of something is never good. We'll tell ourselves it's good while we're doing it, but then like it's like eating a bunch of Twinkies, and then when you see the results, if you're gaining weight, you got high cholesterol, diabetes, things like that, it just goes to show. So I agree with a lot of what she said, how it can systemically break down the narrative of like a healthy household, and also as far as like just speaking to like you know what a logical way of like creating a healthy household looks like. It's like, you do something where you can equally devote your time to your marriage, to your children, and to, just the household as a whole. But when you're just saying like, oh, I just want to procreate, or I just want to like, uh, mate and things like that, better than the caveman, But cavemen had less responsibilities at least. All they had to do was go out and hunt. Like now you have to provide a home, you have to, have a sustainable lifestyle, you gotta have a career, you gotta have health insurance and things. So there's a lot more responsibility that goes into things now that I feel like people don't really hold on to. And I don't think he set an example by doing that, but that's just probably with all the money that he has, it just goes to your head. And you know what? Like, I'm rich, so I know this is what's right. 'Cause I'm wealthy and I'm smart.
I think it's hard too, because like it's hard. I think it's hard for the wives parts of Elon.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't think it was from Elon's fault that there was a divorce. Like maybe it was from like the wives as well. Like a wife couldn't stick with
The lifestyle.
the lifestyle, because it's like his lifestyle is it's really like it's a high lifestyle. It's like he sleeps in his office at points. Like he's up for I don't know, it's more than like 120 hours a week. He does like work, and it's like it's hard for the lady on his side too, because it's like I guess it goes back into what we were talking about in the beginning. Kind of wraps it back into the point where you have to make your sacrifices during the portions. I mean, you sacrifice for your dreams and you sacrifice for your relationships, and it's like how do you sacrifice for both, right? And how do you merge them two together? Like I don't think like he wanted to have like broken households. I think that just came through to a certain point, but he's at such a historic moment in time. Like he's kind of like an exemption, not an exemption, but he's like at a. We don't know both sides of the story, right? So we don't know we don't know his wife's side. We don't. It's true, we don't. And like unless you do.
So he was married once, and then he got married once after that. But then after that, he just had like flings with all of these models, and then he just started doing like weird stuff. He started like using IVF with certain women to like make children, and then he was with.
And some women also just want his children too. Like that could be on the women's side where they're like, oh, I just want this man's children.
I'm saying like. So you're saying you don't know it from the women's side, but like for me, the women who are getting with him are like blinded by his riches, and they're literally like willingly like the woman who just came out for his 13th kid. She only did it because he was ignoring her text messages, and then he like was writing hearts to another woman who just had two of his children, and she got jealous, and so she was like, "I'm airing out that I have you on my baby." So it's a broken line. Like he does know what he's doing, and all the women who are with him want his money and the status.
He reminds me of King Solomon. With all the wisdom and all the knowledge, but then he was weak in his vanity. His emotional intelligence was weak because he didn't know how to handle the vanity of lust. Yeah. Right? It's very similar. And we're not going to probably be able to put this on X. Unfortunately, I'm going to say, but Elon is the modern pimp. I'm sorry, guys. It sounds like that. I hate to say it, but it is. It's just like hustling today, baby. I'm sending you hearts today, and then I'm gonna procreate here. I think his mind is probably already in Mars. Like, man, I gotta make mini Elons everywhere in Mars. You know, they need to go to all these regions, right? So to me, it's like it's a moral compass for him. So
Yeah.
perhaps his level of intelligence of creating technology doesn't make him look into his own humanity, the effects
Yeah.
that his actions could have. Forget about the women that accept it. They're conscious of what they're doing. They're conscious. The little ones are not.
Yeah.
They're the ones that they will come out not knowing and asking questions why, how, when, why did you allow this, mom? How did you protect us? And they start reaching out to Elon. Elon, what's up? Elon is like, hey, I don't have any time. I'm working on this project. I don't know like how his relationship are with his kids, and I don't care either. What I'm saying is like, but there's gonna be some resentfulness at some point because it's like you were irresponsible. It's like our parents from back in the 50s. They used to have 12 kids, right? And they couldn't take care of one of them well. Think about it. They could have taken care of 12.
Actually, I love that you bring that up because I feel like now in our generation, a lot of people who have big families, they're like ostracized for it. But Elon's praised for having a big family, but just with different women. So you can see how, like for me in my faith, I feel like the devil's trying to break down the traditional family household because like why is Elon better than a man and wife who love each other and have the 12 kids? So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And what are your thoughts about the Department of Education?
Oh, the Doge?
Yeah, just what do you think?
I don't, I don't know. I mean, could there be some improvements to the Department of Education? I'm sure there's always room for improvement with a lot of things in life. But I don't know if it's like a good idea to like fully disband it, you because there's not enough data that would indicate like, hey, look, this is not beneficial to have these people in those places in the workforce. And not only that, but I think the same thing, like, these are just statistics these are just numbers that aren't like factual. Where they're saying like, all right, we're gonna make this decision based off of like an idea, not off of like a fact. The same thing with the IRS, like how they spend it. Nobody likes paying taxes, but we don't know what it would do if they do get rid of, all of the federal employees in those areas and things like that. Like, look, it's already having an effect. Like, a lot of people don't even know when they're getting their returns and things like that. So I think, as far as the DOE, I think they there might have been too much rushing into that, but only time will tell how much of an adverse effect it may or may not have. But I for one, I didn't really side.
What about you, Kev?
You know what's crazy? It's like, I think so. When I was listening to with Trump and Elon going over that meeting, like there's like certain like key points that I took out from that meeting, from bringing it out to the public, where trillions of dollars in government money that they spent with contractors, is not like it's traceable, but they don't know what they spent it on. So you have all this money that you spent, and it's government money, and it's like trillions of dollars that you spend out to these contractors that doesn't have why it was spent. Like for example, if you let's bring in a house expense. Like if there was a plumbing issue and you needed to fix a leak, like you'll hire like in the invoice from the plumber, you'll get like this is from the leak. You'll get an invoice, like a proper invoice. You have these government contractors that even sent the government a proper invoice and still got paid out, and they're still getting paid out without needing the services. So they're not even providing services. So basically, there's just like you have these contractors that were like the government has a subscription. You know how many times like people forget about subscriptions. So this government has subscriptions with them, so they keep paying them out without even using their services. That comes out of our money, so our money is getting paid out of people that are providing the services. for the subscription for so it's like and I think about the people that hire those contractors, right? Like it's an inside job of having somebody say like, "Hey, I have a bro that can do it for you guys. Just get him on a subscription with the government. Let's pay him $5,000 a month, and then after 2 months he's not there no more. But keep that subscription open. 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. At the end, you got like after like a year, it's $60,000 for a $5,000 job that he did for 1 month. So that's like a big issue. So like, 'cause that comes out of our pockets. And then Elon Musk being inside contracted by Trump kind of like shows that like at least in my opinion, like the presidential means doesn't matter as much because you have these guys like a president that comes in, you have these guys in a black suit that are gonna give them the suitcase and give them a briefing of what they want America to look like in 4 years, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I think Trump being in the office right now with hiring Elon as a contractor, he really just changed the game of it because he added the contract like Elon will do the same strategy as he did with X. Like when he got into X, he got rid of all the employees that weren't being productive to the or to the Twitter platform before it became X. Got rid of them all because they weren't providing them much work, and then reinstituted more people with the qualifications, like that were actually qualified to do the job, and he got them to run the platform properly. And then now it's making like the profits. Now it's making that change in X. Like he's doing the same strategy in the government office because, of course, like the government office, like their speech right there was to show. I think it's like a historic moment in a way. Show somebody in office themselves that's in the inside says, "Hey, the inside is corrupt, and it's corrupt, and the court doesn't want us to look for any more corruption." It's like the court's even saying, "They're like stop searching." It's like no, we're inside. We want to keep searching. And Trump and Elon Musk being two big entrepreneurs as well, like they don't really need to do this, right? But as like for the country, they are doing it for and for their they might have their own like political gains out of it because they're going after corruption. The government's probably went after their own companies beforehand in the beginning, so it's kind of like their way back of going after the government in a sense because it's like you guys are corrupt. Like I mean, they thought that they were corrupt.
You're right. But at the end of the day, there's always the same collateral damage, which is the people.
Yeah,
Research. So no matter what you do, the collateral damage is always the people. The people's the one that suffers the consequences, even when good decisions are made, because those changes, who you think affect?
oh, they're gonna.
Who do you think they protect first? It's not those that are in need the most. They're like, hey, we're doing this transition. Guess what? Uh, you guys gonna have to suck it up until this works. You know, what are your thoughts on?
Um, I watched the whole like briefing, which was so funny because you had Elon's son just running around. It was funny, but
Was he baking kids as he was
They're in the oven.
like in the oven already? You never know. Has a cold somewhere.
oh my god, I know. I mean, like when Trump was running, I knew like Elon was going to be really big in his presidential campaign, in his office too, because he was saying like he had a good relationship with Elon. Elon fully backs him. The information that they were finding, I thought was very interesting because for me, I feel like um, Kamala, I think she had like a deal at the border with cartels, and that was being like she was getting money from them, and they had a deal, and that's why they didn't want to shut down the border. I think there's a lot of human trafficking that happens at the border, and like we have to protect our kids. And I think like for me, she's just somebody who she likes to look good in front of the public, but behind the scenes, I don't think she's great because like all of these kids who are coming in undocumented, who's really watching out for them? You know, like there's bad guys bringing them in, and it's just terrible, like what they're doing to them. So that's like a big cause to my heart. And then Trump is saying, right, like there's a lot of corruption happening in house. Um, and I think like we all know, like there are oligarchs that run the real government behind the scenes. And so I feel like he's starting to kind of like pull up the curtain a little bit. And I do think he's getting a lot of pushback in that area. And I do think we are going to suffer the brunt of whatever is happening or whatever changes are being implemented because that's just the way that it works, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm not down with the corruption. It's not great. And, you know, I really don't.
Yeah, I agree. Corruption should not be tolerated in any way. Right? So to me, the most, what Elon is doing, they're trying to restructure something, and they made a very radical decision to do it. There's going to be consequences. I hope they also live up to those consequences. They're able to today be proactive about it and how to repay for those mistakes. Because one of the things that our leadership doesn't do is know how to be proactive about repaying a mistake they made and holding themselves accountable. Saying, okay, I make this decision. I project that this is going to happen on this side, but then you project what the other side was going to also take. And if you know that happened, what was your proactive action for that other side to not suffer as much? You have to suffer for change. It's inevitable, but suffering at an extent for something to work and it's not even guaranteed, I think it's a big risk. The second is, the biggest corruption we have is our lobby. Our lobby is it's like anyone can go out there and bribe our politicians legally. I don't think until we don't understand how the effect of that plays in government. Like if you're the big pharma company, they have so much money they can bribe anyone legally. Again, it's not called bribery, it's called donations, right? I'll donate to your campaign. This is where I believe a real leader says, I want to stop corruption, although this is legal, but it's corrupted. Yeah. It is corrupted. I always give the example of slavery. Slavery was legal. But was it right? No, it wasn't. So it's the same thing happening here. I do think we have to raise our voice for people to really understand that no matter who you vote for in the next presidency, the next 10 years, if the big corporations are still lobbying their politicians and making huge donations to whoever, they see fit. Because again, you walk in with $1 million into a precinct, you give it to the captain. If the captain accepts the $1 million briefcase, he owes you $1 million fee. He is as guilty as you when you gave him that donation. And it could be legal. And it's a negotiation. It is a donation dash legal bribery. So I think that's my biggest concern about the political. When is that going to stop? Like, I can't go to my councilman and say, hey, here's $10. And when you make it to office, remember, I donated $10. I'm pretty sure that there's accountability from these corporations to that political party or that public figure.
Yeah. Well, too, it's not only the presidential elections we have to pay attention to. It's also our local elections, because those are the ones that really impact us to where we can make a change in that sense. I was listening to a talk from a politician, I forget his name, but he was saying when you're in the inside, a lot of people will come up to him and be like, what are your dreams? Like, what are your goals? What do you want? And he's like, I tell them I want nothing, because that's how they get you under their thumb. They can like prevent you from getting a promotion or try to like pay money. And he's like, I don't want anything. I'm just there to like disturb the voting process like internally. And I love that he said that. I was like, well, like he really has to keep everything to his chest, so that because that's how they're getting over on people on the inside. It's very interesting.
Now that you mentioned that, and this is the last question so we hold the show today. If you look in social media today, we have a lot of CEOs, a lot of people that own businesses or they're in a high chairman position, and you can see how freely they can speak about their company, their assets, life, and it seems like they're not afraid of any repercussion, of what they say. But those that work in the mid-level, entry-level section, do you guys think they feel free to talk freely, just like the big, people in these companies? You can be honest. I don't know, just I don't know where you want to start, or
I feel like they don't they don't have the same intention as what they say they are. Like, oh, this is to help the community, or this is to help the economy, or the state, or the city, whatever. But as you mentioned before, it's usually an ulterior motive, and that's for all parties involved. But I think that they're worried less about who it's going to affect and how it's going to affect them, just opposed to how it's going to help them. And I think that's the common denominator when it comes to like knowing what their intentions are when they're coming into office, or what they plan to do. Because like you said, there's always glass half full, half empty. Like you can see how they're saying, oh, we want to uncover all of these missing dollars that are always going into the abyss. But then it's also like, okay, you get that money. What are you gonna do with it? Oh, you're gonna send more funding to the army and to the other countries, in support of ongoing war and help one side more than the other. You never know. But like you said, the people who win are the ones who benefit from it the most, and that's really
why do you think people listen to, like, for example, Elon Musk on social media for advice? It's almost like
because money equals success, and success equals knowledge. I'm being facetious, obviously. And that's usually what people go to. There's homeless people out here that are geniuses. I don't believe that money makes you somebody that like can lead you to safety and things like that. I just think money just gives you an advantage. That's really all it does. I don't think money equals knowledge, respect. It just usually uh, illustrates power and just influence. That's really all.
and that's a good point, because if you go through it, like, for example, our podcast is pretty unique.
Mhm.
But if you listen to other podcasts that are very popular, you have these big shot people talking about, like, integrity and all. But then you look at it, it's like, how many real poor people that you serve that you did not know at all, that you went to a community blindly, and you were able to just be yourself in there and say, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody, and I'll bring the question to you guys, because I'm definitely interested in hearing your opinion. When we were talking about, like, for example, like a pastor that's a big shot pastor in the world, how often did they go to those churches that are made out of, like, that are breaking down? They're like a really important. When did they ever go there to preach? It's the same concept. But then you always want to listen to them preach, but you don't see the action of them going into these humble places and preaching the word. You don't see them in those marginalized neighborhoods where there's not even a roof, as for a church to preach the word. That who wants to jump on that one? Because it goes into that. Why do we listen?
Well, I think like you take someone like Joel Osteen, who's so like widely celebrated because he's got money, he's got the cameras. Versus, I was telling Kevin this the other day. There's the Franciscan friars in Manhattan. In their order, if the neighborhood starts to become gentrified, they have to move towards the poor. So like the foundations of their order, they constantly have to be serving the poor. That even if it starts to become an up and coming town, they have to pick up and go after the poor, and they are not televised. There are no cameras on them. So I think there's such a difference in the way like people who, and it goes back to the validation. If you want the validation of the people and the money's greasing your palm, it's easy to say pretty things versus, their stories are so beautiful about how they walk with women who have drug addictions and the homeless. And there are no cameras following them. You wouldn't even know their stories unless you talk to them. So yeah, it's very interesting. And then going back to if you feel comfortable, like speaking for a company, I had a job where I was about to sign the contract, and so I read through all of the everything they had in that contract. And as I'm reading it, they're literally saying like anything you say outside of this company will not reflect us, and like you are not the spokesperson for this company. And I was like, what are they even saying? And like the way you post on social media, you are saying that you are not a reflection of this brand. I'm like, what? That is so like choking you out. So I would imagine no, I do not feel comfortable speaking for the company.
Yeah, and also like that also gives you the point of like I can ask you guys how many times you guys felt that retaliation can come because you have an opinion about something outside of the work hours. That's another thing. If you're not working, where is your freedom? You already clocked out. That contract should hold you accountable if you're in those working hours and a reporter comes into the store or anywhere and they start asking you questions. But then once you clock out, you are not the employee anymore. You are employed, but you're not on the clock. And then for that, your freedom. And I think that's another thing people have to settle with the government. It's like, hey, protect us. Why? Because we had Fang on the show, and you saw how she freely spoke. That woman freely spoke about what she thought, how she felt, how the gaming industry was, the goods and bads, without thinking that tomorrow she would go at work and somebody was going to say, like, hey, we got to sit down. Here, you feel that way. Why?
Hmm. And do you get NDA contracts that go through? Or is there like it's like really political information that's just like when you have these CEOs that talk up in let's talk about the tiers, right? Like high tiers, you speak freely because it's like you're not really shackled down to anything. It's like as long like you're not ruining reputation either by speaking freely. If anything, you like get your reputation from speaking freely. So that's like high tier. Mid tier, it's mid and low tier. It's like you have these. Sometimes it's just like you have these contracts that are signed, and the NDAs is like do not disclose. Or it's like what Autumn was saying, representation of brand that are in the contracts, but you're not really representing the brand when you're free outside of work and we're free outside of being when you're the employee when you're not being on site, like when you're not working in and then like and when you're at that level too, like the mid and low tier, you also don't want to lose like what you have because that's like the main source of income, main source of having something. Um, so then there's like it's a little bit more fearful up on their front, and I think that's why it's not like speaking up too fully about it. Like
It's like you're holding your tongue because there's repercussions. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Why should you live with the fear of repercussions, of retaliation, for the freedom of what protects you under the Constitution?
I know
You
freedom
know,
of
so
speech, right?
yeah. So to me, it's that. It's like, why? When did the corporation have so much strength to go to cover your mouth against the Constitution? That's why my biggest concern is if we do not stop lobbyists from donating money to our official government,
Mm.
because that's what's corrupting. Guess what? Who is, hey, this is cool. Make this happen. Make it a law. It passes as a bill. Everyone signs. Who are signing? Those that have been heavily favored by those donations. So it's so corrupted that it brings you down to like, oh, so is the Constitution stronger than a corporation and what they have to say? That's my dilemma, and this is where I want to, because I know we should be going. This is where I want to just hear like a short 1 minute what you guys think about that. Do you really feel that that the Constitution should be lesser than a corporate law or a contract for that sake? Go ahead.
So Constitution is our foundation of America, a foundational pillar that we set through for America to have founding fathers created it, and that gave us the stability. You throw that out the window, then it's not really America anymore. It's corporate America now.
Corporatism.
Yeah, corporatism is just taking over, and like when you look at the pyramid of what America is like, it is the corporations that are above the politicians because of those favors, because you could pay out certain politicians for it. So it's we got to bring back like hold the Constitution down to its T because that was our foundation of building of America, not corporate America. And corporate America now it's like we need proper leaders that don't follow those political rules to give them an edge. Because that's all it is. It's just a political rule that gives them an edge. And I think that goes down to leadership, morals, the morality of the leaders that are there. Like I think it'll go through a hopefully, right? Hopefully it'll go through a generation where we have like more of those moral leaders come up and like, for example, the retaliation. I say this is not retaliating versus a leader that doesn't like the person and would be like, oh, this is retaliating, or giving the opportunities for somebody to be like to defend themselves based off of retaliation. Um, we'll just need those systems in play. So, quote like keep the Constitution. Is that this is the foundation of how we're made? Throw out corporatism because it's actually destroying the earth. It's destroying us. So we gotta keep it all. We gotta keep it through.
What are your thoughts, Joseph?
I think keep it through. I think back on he said, I think obviously like times have changed a lot since it was drawn up, but I do feel like once we start going against like what's been the law of the land, then it opens up the doors for like you know what's the word I'm looking for? Like Marxism and all that other stuff. People being dictators and things like that. 'Cause they're just like creating like martial law. Like, oh, we decide what this is, and we're gonna do that. So I do think it's a very uh, what's the word? Dangerous leg to play close to. But I mean, it's just sadly it's going to be one of the things where like we just have to see how things play out because we not in those positions when we get to make those decisions. But I do think there may be some adverse effects as well as the other stuff.
On
I think our Constitution is fundamental, because beyond in like the background where we don't really hear too much of, George Soros says some really crazy stuff, and nobody, I don't really know if he's on everybody's radar. And then you have the whole stuff that happened with the vaccine, and now everybody wants to put their tail between their legs and say like, no, like I didn't mean to censor you about vaccine status and like looking up what is a vaccine, or let me question what a vaccine is, because big pharma, like they just want to like pump us with all of these chemicals and not question it. Or everybody who had to line up for the COVID vaccine, who was ostracized from their job and cut off from society, like that was planned. Then you have like they're planning to do smart cities, right? And then you have these mysterious fires happening. There's so many things going on underneath the surface that Trump is a wild card, he is. But I feel like everybody who is pointing at him like, oh, you have Elon Musk in the Oval Office, and they're like saying all this stuff about him. But I'm like, where are you guys when all this stuff is going on? Like, are you just waking up now? Like, I think we the people, we have a voice, and if we all come together to recognize where corruption is, and we bring it back to like the founding fathers were young, they were in their 20s, and they were like feisty and they wanted to change. I think we have to remember like we can make the change, and we can stand up when we don't like something and come together to do that. And I think it's good to have unity. I think a lot of the narratives from media is just so discord and disunity amongst us people, so that we can be fighting. But because if we all come together and look at them like, okay, you guys have all this money, but you're trying to like do horrible things with it, we can make that change. And yeah, our Constitution fundamental, but we need to get stronger as the people.
Yeah, I love what you guys said, because it puts me in question. It's like, is corporatism like the Matrix, politically correct modern dictatorship model, where the corporations are the one dictating and they cover it up politically correct by a system that allows them to invest money in that system. And that's what I'm concerned, because the people have a voice, but they don't have the money. And remember that this is where we see that big disparity, of 1% versus 99. The voice of 99 does not compete against the 1% because of the resource.
You know what I love now? I'm sorry, Rick. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man.
The best part, the best flip of it in this generation that happened is that digital world. The digital world got us to connect in a sense to other people, create those resources, and then, like, for example, we are here give us the voices to project to.
And remember when we had the conversation on our last pod, who controls that? It's not us. The algorithms are controlled by those that have the power. So that's where my concern is. As a 99%, that we are much stronger because our voice should be more valuable than the resources of the 1%. This is where we need to really understand, where are we going to put the good fight for it? Because our founding fathers fought the war. They saw blood. They saw people dying. They saw that their effort was for freedom. Now, it's not even that there's an enemy, but there's an adversary that only has 1%, and there's 99% of the other hand that can easily, just by voicing out, change that. But we choose not to do it because we're afraid of losing what we don't even have anymore, which is our voice. So that's how I'm going to conclude today the Epic Skills podcast. I love you guys. Thank you, Justin, Kevs, Autumn.
Thank you, Justin.
And what did I learn? We all need to be like Kevs. You know, that was the biggest intake. You know, and Autumn, you're amazing for selecting Kevin. But now, Kevin, you need to write a book, and I'm gonna take all the suggestions. I'm definitely not eating bananas anymore.
Yeah, I got time to say.
The story. But yeah, we value your time, and hopefully you were not only found this entertaining, but there's a lot of things that we want to create awareness of. So stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you.
Good stuff. Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, Elon Musk procreating. Yeah.
You got another name. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
I'm trying to coexist.